We never had a sit-down, free-ranging talk over a beer, so I can only surmise early life events that influenced Dave. Dave's father died quite suddenly when he was young, and most of his subsequent upbringing was overseen by his beloved mother. This love notwithstanding, I think that Dave felt somewhat bereft, owing to his father's absence, the loss of an easily discernible role model, and I'm certain the family experienced financial constraints. Dave grew up in Philadelphia, infused with Dutch-German sense of seriousness and purpose. Though I doubt that his mom ever expressed it exactly like this, I'm sure her expectations for her prized son were similar to that of Noah Webster's father, a descendant of earnest New England Puritans, who beseeched Noah, quote, to do good in the world and be useful, to behave as to gain the esteem of all virtuous people that are acquainted with you, especially that you may live to obtain the favor of Almighty God. And so Dave did. Once when young, Dave was accosted by some ruffians and manhandled. Humiliated, Dave subsequently learned to wrestle. To their dismay, the ruffians challenged Dave but one more time. Perhaps this incident where Dave was able to subdue his adversaries kindled in him that take charge mindset. With his intense brown eyes and thoughtful, measured responses, he projected intelligent earnestness and sincerity. He went to the University of Pennsylvania on scholarship, majored in chemistry, an area of study not to be taken lightly, and was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa for his academic excellence. It was not all books, however, because Dave was on the university's wrestling team and engaged in a plethora of other activities. Something clicked in college. Dave quickly evolved into a recognized leader of men. He was voted captain of the wrestling team, class president, and vice president of the student council. Additionally, he was chief counselor at the university's Camp for the Underprivileged and president of the University Christian Association. The university recognized Dave for his academic and leadership achievements, and upon graduation, awarded him its highest class honors, the so-called wooden spoon. Dave represented the ideal University of Pennsylvania graduate. With such accomplishments, Dave would have been eagerly sought by any medical school, but he chose to stay at Penn. And while studying medicine, he must have thought of neurosurgery because he elected to intern at the University of Michigan, which had one of the country's premier neurosurgical programs. At the time, neurosurgeons were trained to do it all: operations on the brain, the spine, the nerves. Peripheral nerve surgery was done almost as an aside. Dave must have sensed that specialization in surgery for peripheral nerves disorders was a wide open field, ripe for development. The unique technique that Dave brought to the surgical treatment of peripheral nerve injuries and tumors was electrical stimulation and recordings of such stimulations along damaged nerves. For example, if a stimulating electrode replaced proximal to a nerve lesion and a recording electrode placed beyond it, and the recording electrode did not record any electrical impulses from the stimulating electrode, this indicated that the nerve function beyond the lesion was blocked, and the nerve would never function, and the muscles it supplied would be forever paralyzed. Resecting the nerve lesion and suturing the new nerve ends together would allow new nerve connections to grow down from the proximal nerve into the distal nerve. This reinnervation of the distal nerve would eventually reach the paralyzed muscle and allow the muscle to function again. Electrical recordings directly off exposed nerve was by far the most sensitive way to ascertain nerve function and recovery. Dave began his electrophysiological studies of normal and damaged nerves in the laboratory, both at Walter Reed Army Hospital and as a neurosurgical resident at Michigan. While a resident, he applied his electrical nerve stimulating recording techniques to patients with nerve lesions. In two papers from the late 1960s, presenting this new interoperative electrical recording method and the excellent results achieved, Dave modestly suggested, quote, some technique of evoking electrical nerve responses through an area of nerve injury may be helpful to the neurosurgeon deciding whether or not to resect the area of an injured nerve. May be helpful. The understatement of a young neurosurgeon presenting his new technique to a tradition-bound neurosurgical world. In his heart and mind, Dave knew that nerve recordings directly off the injured nerve to solidify surgical decision-making was the way forward. And he's built his neurosurgical career on this premise. Dave came to LSU School of Medicine in 1967. Owing to his academic excellence and clinical excellence, he became head of the Division of Neurosurgery in 1971. He was made full professor in 1975, and owing to his leadership and diplomatic skills, became chairman of the newly founded Department of Neurosurgery, also in 1975. As department chairman, Dave was discerning, recruiting excellent young neurosurgical staff as Roger Smith, arguably one of the country's finest aneurysm surgeons and magnificent instructor of residents and teacher of medical students. Dave promoted the welfare of the neurosurgical staff, shepherding each through the promotion process and championing them as the need arose. Dave was fiercely loyal to the neurosurgical residents, to whom he devoted so much of his life. He secured extra training to those who desired it, as George Cravens, who went to Toronto, and Joe Nadell, who went to Case Western Reserve University to learn more of pediatric neurosurgery. Joe, of course, became head of pediatric neurosurgery at Children's Hospital here in New Orleans. In essence, Dave saw to it that New Orleans had its first community pediatric neurosurgeon. As I observed from making rounds with Dave at Charity Hospital, he was compulsive and meticulous in his care for patients, assuring that each got optimal, humane care. In addition to running an LSU neurosurgical residency with patient care based at Charity Hospital, Dave carried on a very active private practice at Ochsner Foundation Hospital. There he operated on hundreds of patients with complex nerve injuries and tumors, basing many of his operations on the electrical physical nerve conduction recording technique which he pioneered. He operated on patients shunned by other surgeons, notably those with brachial plexus injuries. Gradually, by the enormous effort required for his hundreds of operations and national and international publications, which eventually reached more than 350, and by dint of innumerable conferences, Dave became recognized as the world's foremost expert in peripheral nerve injuries and tumors. More than 60 neurosurgeons came from around the world to study with and learn from Dave. Among his most significant publishing achievements were his two books, Klein and Hudson, Nerve Injuries, Operative Results in Major Nerve Injuries, Entrapments and Tumors, and Klein, Hudson, and Kim, Atlas of Peripheral Nerve Surgery. Both of these books published by W.B. Saunders of Philadelphia. Totally dedicated to neurosurgery, Dave was very active in national and international neurosurgery, being a member of 25 neurosurgical and surgical societies, 11 editorial boards, and various national neurosurgical committees, too numerous to count. Indeed, Dave was a consummate organizational man. In these milieus, his leadership skills again showed through. He was elected president of the New Orleans Neurosurgical Society, the Southern Neurosurgical Society, the Society of Neurological Surgeons, and he was founder and president of the Sunderland Society, devoted to the study of peripheral nerves and the advancement of their surgical treatment. Dave received 4 honors. In 1995, he was named the LSU Boyd Professor, the university's highest academic honor. The medical school has only 8 Boyd professors. America's largest neurosurgical society, the American Association of Neurological Surgeons, gave Dave his highest award, the Cushing Medal, in 2006. And the Congress of Neurological Surgeons and the Neurosurgical Society of America also medaled Dave. Thus, in a life totally devoted to neurosurgery and particularly peripheral nerve neurosurgery, Dave indeed gained the esteem of virtuous people throughout the world. As a colleague and friend, I watched Dave blossom, ever industrious and completely modest and unassuming about his enormous achievements, never letting on all that he had accomplished. Memory brings up many images of Dave. Perhaps one of the most telling is one that sees him earnestly trundling down a medical school corridor late in the evening when most have gone home, Dave's arms full of papers. He's just come from a medical school steering conference of some sort. Or I see him again late in the evening as I pass his office on my way home. There he is, behind his paper-strewn desk, head down, bathed in a yellow light, riding away. I pass the door. Good night, Dave. And so, goodbye, Dave. May angels watch over you. Mike.